Good morning to you. Good morning to you.
I didn't hear the music this morning, but maybe that was just me.
Maybe you know what? There's some mornings where it's on and I don't hear it, but then you guys hear it, and I'm like, oh, I forgot to
Yeah,
end it. So not sure. Sometimes sometimes with StreamYard with this software, there are some bugs, but it doesn't like ruin the overall. It's like something. It's like small things that just make you question it. But then you're like, this didn't ruin the whole thing, so it's all good. So it's interesting.
yeah. Well, that's the good part about doing it every day, right? There's just another
Yeah,
day.
yeah. Just another data point, whatever it is. Hey, I had something on my eye. I don't know what it was. Can I tell you what it looked like? It's
Yeah,
weird. So I was at
I'm not the resident nurse here though, but
no, it's okay. It's because I just took care of it, but it was I had we were basically the whole night we were over at the in-laws. We were celebrating all January birthdays, and then came home. It wasn't my night for bed, so I was just kind of relaxing for a little bit as bedtime was happening with the girls. I looked in the mirror, and right on the eyelid, like right where like the hair was meeting the lid, there's like a little whitehead there, and I was like, "What is this? I've never seen it before."
You got a sty in your eye?
I don't know. Is it a sty? It wasn't in my eye though. It was like on my eyelid right here, and then
hmm,
I plucked it. That's what it was, but I don't know what it was. It was weird. Anyway, that's what it is. I realized I didn't think you could see it, and then I just realized you could see it. So then I was like, I just got to bring attention to it. It
Middle
looks.
age problems.
yep.
Is it? Is that a middle age problem?
Everything
That's
is.
what I just
Everything
anything
is.
weird like that I just chalk up to being middle aged.
You
Like
know, it's
weird
like these
things that
little.
just happen. Like once in a while I get like over here, I get like this really little tiny skin tag. Remember that dad had one on his back? And I'm like, does he
Mm,
feel that there? Like, does that have sensation? So I
oh,
pick it
yeah.
off and it stays away for a while and then it kind of starts popping back up. I'm like, ugh,
Oh,
skin tag.
weird. Yeah, definitely comes
Ryan,
with age.
Ryan, I have some information regarding your lineage that I talked to mom with last night.
Okay,
A little bit of clarity.
what's up?
Congratulations, you are my biological brother.
Oh
So,
no,
so there is
this
that.
is this is one of these moments where I get nervous that the information was not transmitted appropriately because there's no question of whether I was your biological brother or not.
I just enjoyed that part of the story that there might be some discrepancy there.
Oh, and if
Um,
no one knows, there's backstory here. I had said that my grandmother had mentioned one time that someone in our past, not direct, that there was some sort of intermingling with somebody from Cuba. So there may have been some Cuban blood within us because sometimes I just feel my hips dancing, and I just wanted to know why. Anyway,
correct.
Jason
It
is now
is
either correcting me or he is.
no yeah, addendum. I'm adding to the story. It is not Puerto Rican. You're Cuban.
Oh,
I keep in my head, I'm like, my brother's got some Cuban blood. And I'm like, why wouldn't I have Cuban blood? But
yeah.
maybe it's just like an interesting backstory. So yeah, we have our great grandmother. She had a baby with another man named Robley Evans. So Robley, if you're watching, hi. Um, back in the 1920s or something. Um, so Grammy was had a different father than mom knew as her grandfather, and that is where your great olive skin comes from. Um, a few other factoids. Um, our great great grandmother was proposed to by Frank James, Jesse James's brother.
Oh, nice.
I enjoyed that. Our great 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 grandfather worked with Pat Boone and Kiger, which is mom's maiden name. There's only one Kiger, so if you meet a Kiger, we are related to them.
Oh, Was it like a made up name then?
No, it comes from Geiger,
Oh, like the counter?
like the counter, or maybe the faucetware. So we're pretty much related to Jesse James. We are related to the Bush family somehow. Our family has
Wait,
worked
just
with Paul
because someone
Revere.
was proposed to, though, was the proposal accepted?
No, it was not, because he was a dirty criminal. That's why. And our family exercised good judgment.
Wait, so then we just there's just degrees of connection. We're not really blood related to them.
Yeah, whatever. We'll just keep that part of the story.
Oh yeah.
Because that's what we can do. We can forge our own path and make our own story. So,
Well,
that's
I
a
was just
perfect story.
excited to have the Bats lineage, my wife's side, that was known for for being gangsters and bats. They used bats as their weapon of choice. And then having Jesse James, I mean, it just would have been like killers all over the place. Sounds like.
Yeah, I think we're just like a collection of like superheroes and criminals.
That's what I think.
That's what I'm telling myself.
This is the start of my enemy arc. And he walked around with a red eye. Yeah, no, I to put it, not to end it with what I have to say, but I had heard many things. We related to the Bush family, the Bushes, like the presidential Bushes. We had someone who we were related to that came over on the Mayflower. There are many things. At some point, I was like, I don't really know what's real anymore. So, but those are all pretty cool. But also, I just wanted to point out the fact that I did make that mistake of Cuban versus Puerto Rican. I'm sure that is not a very good thing to get mixed up. But I think it was just because we were talking about it, and I just had that. So anyway, Cuban, I'm there for it. I'm here for it. Good. Judgment. Judgment.
Morning.
Where are we passing judgment, guys? Where have we taught our kids to pass judgment? That's what it's all about today. It's all about judgment. And I love that it opened up with, correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis Leary, right? Opened up with a Dennis Leary quote.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Leary had said, if we don't know Dennis Leary, he was a, what is Dennis Leary most known for?
Stepdad in Sandlot.
Oh, yeah. You said this recently, didn't you? How about you, John?
Read ahead, Jason. I don't know. I can't picture him right now.
For some reason, the first time I think about him is, wasn't he a firefighter on a recent show? So I keep seeing his face as a firefighter. I'm pretty sure that was something. But Dennis Leary had a quote. He said, I'm going to paraphrase, the only thing my kid hates are naps, or dislikes, whatever the word he used, because hates, I guess, is a strong word. But more or less what we're saying here is that judgment, we pass judgment onto our kids, no matter what it is. The little things we say, it got me thinking about some things, about what we do, how we treat people. Do you guys keep all those thoughts away from your kids? The judgment thoughts? Do you ever let judgment roll into these conversations and realize they're listening, or maybe you're not filtering yourself? I have two moments, and I don't know if I take them back, but I do.
We think.
What's that, Dom?
I said, why don't you share your thoughts? Well, Jason and I think about ours.
All right. So I think we have kids growing up. As they are getting older, I think we're starting to think about who they're hanging out with. And I know that I've mentioned directly, this is a direct thing that I had my daughter as part of the conversation, almost pointing out at least one or two things from a friend that I was like, I hope that you don't pick up that habit that they have. Now, I don't think I'm wrong in terms of like what I said, but maybe it's how I said it. And regardless, it doesn't even matter at the end of the day. I'm sure she doesn't even remember what it was that I said. I hope that you don't pick up. But it's the fact that Dad was talking negatively about my friend. And I think that alone is what bothered me, because I think I could have been a lot more tactful in saying it. And, you know, maybe it was a emotionally heightened moment. I don't know if that's the case. But the other one for sure, I think parents just arguing. I think I just thought I had to bring it up, like arguing in front of kids. And I think then it starts this whole thing of like, okay, well, they're not agreeing. And then like, where does that go? It's like, okay, well then is dad judging mom, or what's going, like, you don't know what's going on in a kid's head. But that was definitely what I was thinking about. And Chicago Fire was the show that I was thinking about. Thank you. Thank you, Bri. Those are my two thoughts around Judgment. Now I know it can go larger. Like we start thinking about like different races. Jason's judged me because I'm basically Cuban. And so.
But I accept you. I accept you as my brother.
I hope so.
And he realized he was basically Cuban too.
Yeah.
No, I agree with those two. I think I've probably done a little bit of each of those myself. I know for sure. You know, passive judgment on my wife on stuff she does that I don't agree with out loud in front of the kids, and you know, even going further, some of the stuff that I've passed down to them, I'll let them know audibly, and then like as I think about it more, I'm like, oh wait, you guys probably got that from me. So I'm sure there's a ton. I'm just not thinking of anything right now.
I'll start.
Go for it, Jason.
I'd like to add, so Dom had a good point. I think the one that comes to my head the most, second is friends, that you mentioned, Ryan, is like how we show judgment when, you know, with the people they decide to surround themselves with. But the first, I think, is how they see us navigate things as a couple. Like how I just had the words. The words are in my head. Such a Cuban thing to do. It's example. Last night, me and Kristen last night, we got into a good discussion about quality of life. Part of it is like, you know, she's kind of in a rough spot with her, you know, with her career and like not totally enjoying it. And my point is like, well, how do we navigate that together instead of harping on find another thing? It's like, how can we navigate this part together, because it affects both of us. And Kira caught kind of more an emotional point where, and then sorry, Kristen, if I'm getting a little too deep in the morning, but Kira caught us where, you know, Kristen was a bit visibly upset with like kind of how she was processing her thoughts about things. And it wasn't like a thing between us, just like, you know, what she was feeling about her career at the time. And I think Kira picked up on that a lot, and that was kind of affecting her through the night. And I'm glad she saw that.
Kira, or it was affecting your daughter, or it was affecting Kristen?
Kira was kind of seeing how we were talking. We were talking fine. We weren't arguing. It was just like Kristen was just kind of getting a little bit emotional about what we were talking about, which is fine.
Really?
It's a good conversation. But what I'm glad about is like Kira saw us navigate this difficult thing productively instead of kind of like two heads banging against a wall. With friends, I'm really concerned about, like, I'm self-conscious about that, like you are, Ryan, because I don't want to talk bad about friends who make bad decisions. And I'm more observing what our daughter's reactions are to it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think we never said like, we don't want you hanging out with them. Never said that. It's more like carefully navigating and separating whatever decision that might be that the friend made from like the person.
Yeah, I hear kind of this non-absolutist way of thinking, or at least talking, right? It's like, okay, well, what I'm going to say about this person is an action that they've done, not who they are. Maybe that's how it is. And I think that's just the ability. I mean, I think lately I've been hanging on this thought of like being curious over judgmental. Or lately I've been saying, that I've been attracted more recently to, or I look around, the people that I've kind of gravitated to, or people that end up having a lot more curiosity than ego. And I think that's maybe people who just, as we get older, I don't know if that's the case. But I also find that people who are absolutists end up becoming the people that kind of fall in that group of judgmental. But we're all judging. We're all judging. Can we all just say that? We're all judging.
Yeah.
We need to. Isn't that how we stay safe in life?
Kind of. But it's like, yeah, I definitely judge. I feel like I'm good at withholding judgment outwardly and vocally, because I don't like stating a final opinion, because I feel like it can change.
Dom, how do you stay so stoic? There's been a couple times I feel like in text conversations where I know something's been said, not like highly judgmental, but I feel like your first response was more along the lines of like, maybe, but this is the other side of it. And it's always a good check. What do you think your mind comes from?
I mean, I do practice being stoic every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing that for a couple of years now. So
yeah,
I can actually say that. I don't know. I think one of the things that I learned in my readings was basically, the first thought you have versus the second thought you kind of create. Like the first thought is like your gut reaction to what is said. It's what's based on your past. It's what's based on, what your family built in you, what your society built in you. It's just like your gut reaction to things. And it's, if you're in a state of whatever, which is what I'm in, a state of like growth and creating like a better future self, you want to ignore that first thought, because that's from the person that I was, the person I'm trying to get away from. And you want to instead, think another thought, create another thought, established another thought based on like your new perspective. That's not as like, it doesn't fire as fast because it's not 40 something years old. My first thought is 40 something years old. It's natural. It shoots from the hip. It's what, comes out when I'm in, a state of fight or flight. And then once I'm able to calm down, take a deep breath, like it's easy to do in text. It's easy to do, when you're on Twitter and you can sit there and you can take a breath and you can have that second thought. It's a lot harder to do in person. It's a lot harder to do when you're, having a heated conversation with your wife, or when you're, getting on your kids about homework and they're saying, nah, bruh. It's harder to do in person, but yes, much easier to do over the phone.
I always think about on X and stuff like that. This is definitely during that like monetization moment for me, is that when people get in arguments, I always wonder, one, if the person's real, but also I wonder, these people that are taking pauses, everyone sounds like they have a good point, but how many people are typing something into Chat GPT and just like posting it? Like no one's really learning anything. Or no one's really arguing their point. They're just cutting and pasting responses from Chat GPT. It always seems that way. And sometimes like you can see there's like a hyphen in there. But the pause, I've always said this in therapy. I've always said for so long, and I want to bring up an important point with the little time we have left, but I've always said to my therapist, I wish I had a pause button. I always wish, and like the pause button is like what you're talking about, Dom. It's like practicing the stoicism, slowing things down, not reacting so quickly. Like that is what it is. And that's like, I remember one of the most helpful things I got from therapy one time was when we talked about an anger scale and kind of like how you can start to understand where your anger is. And that was like part of my pause button. Like pause buttons is like bigger thing, but like how do you install a pause button and how do you find it in some of those moments? And even like, in passing judgment, just like David's saying here, right? So it's kind of like, how can we not pass judgment too quickly? Because sometimes it just might not be a correct thought, or we are being so absolute about it. I think I need to do some more reading, Dom. I need to finish the book you sent me, number one. But I think I need some of that stoicism. But I did want to bring up one thing really quickly, because I think like this idea of passing judgment on other people is important. But there is another area I really wanted to bring up, and I don't know if you guys feel this so much, but I know that it's like any kids. But I think, and maybe it's because I do deal with this more often, but the way that we talk to ourselves and the thought that kids are always watching, there's so much internal thoughts that happen here. But the more that we judge ourselves, the more that we talk negatively to ourselves, I think that is one of the most impactful things that we can actually have on our kids. The way that we're talking about, like, how we're eating, or how we feel in a certain, in certain clothing, or how we might look in the mirror, whatever it is. I am really grateful, because I don't feel like, I think I have a wife who is very confident about so many things. It's just, I think, how she moves through the world, which is definitely good. But I know that not every person is that way. I know that I have a friend who's a parent friend. He's very judgmental, and he says these things, and I wonder how it's affecting his kid. And I think I see some things that are popping up, but I don't know if I'd ever bring it up. What do you guys think about that self-talk, though? Because that was the big judgment thing that I wanted to get to.
Are you talking about like self-talk out loud, or just like how we show our internal monologue?
Well, I would argue both. I think more superficially, it's easy to say the more that we talk verbally to ourselves and our kids hear it. But the other is just like, we talk about actions, right? When let's say, I'm just making these things up as I think, but the way that we are, our kids watch us stand in front of a mirror and then get upset when we feel like we don't we're not looking the way that we actually want to, like this little thing on my eye. I could have stood in front of the mirror and be like, I look so ugly today, don't look at me, right? Like that's going to like affect my kid more than something else. Like Sloane's friend came over last night, and her friend, I said something funny. Usually the things that I say that are funny, I think are funny, number one, but number two are just a complete lie. Because she was like, hey, your eye's red. I go, oh, sorry, my eye's falling out. I just put it back in. And then I walk away, and like, I always wonder how it's affecting these kids. I think it's so fun. But anyway, neither here nor there. But it's, I think, just like how we react even non-verbally. Like if we step in front of a mirror and then we're like pulling at things and grabbing at stuff and like just looking upset the way that we, or what our reflection looks like, I think our kids pick up on that. So judgment. I just wanted to make sure judgment wasn't kept in like certain groups of people, that it really is. Like, I think right now, kids internally are taking so much of this judgment. I hope that my girls don't move through life judging themselves too harshly. That's where I was going with it. So either one.
I'm thinking, I'm trying to practice self-talk here. When I think about judgment with my kids, I try to visualize, I try to go back and think about myself at their age and what I judged and where I learned judgment. And I don't think in middle school or earlier, my judgments were coming from my parents. I think it was largely coming from my friends. And I feel like sometimes I might have been hyper aware of how I felt people were judging me. It really wasn't until maybe late teens, early 20s when I started considering what mom and dad might do, you know, which is something I have thought about before. Like when you're talking about the self-talk and verbalizing your thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something I've done a little bit better is when I see something that I don't disagree with, it's verbalizing my thoughts in that moment. Like, let's say I'm having a hard time thinking of like a specific conversation, but it's more like when I see somebody treating somebody in a way that I think is incorrect, and my kids are there. What does that discussion look like? Like, how do I verbalize that I disagree? And sometimes it's like, well, that's not really nice. At my best, if we're driving on on the way to school, like me and Kira almost got into like could have been a fairly big fender bender on the highway. I could have easily like made it a point to like speed around, honk, and give the finger, which I've done before with the kid in the car. But my first thought this time was I want her to see me consider our safety first and not worry about this person they'll never see again on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that judgment goes in how we handle situations. And sometimes I nail it and sometimes I don't. But I'd say in general, I think me and Kristen are pretty good at judging people based on actions, not preconceived notions.
Yeah. I like that. The driving reference, I think, is definitely a big one.
Because that's like
Dom,
the immediate, like Dom, you were talking about like the first thought, right? And that first thought comes out, you know, that's the easiest one. And that might be like your base level you that comes out. Because I think that's something that in my earlier in my life, maybe that was it. And then you learn how to consider those thoughts. The first reaction is to get angry, honk, spend the energy to honk, spend the energy to put your finger up and look to the side, or it's they see you spend the energy to maintain safety.
Yep. I mean, that's the situation where I was saying, like, that's the tough situation to do it in person in a scenario where, you know, you could have been in an accident, your blood's rushing, heart's racing, all those things. And that's usually when it just kind of comes out. And I think those are the parts that the reading is talking about, the stuff that is so micro that we don't even think about it and it just happens, but that our kids pick up on. And then next thing you know, it's like they're driving and it happens to them and they automatically do it. And it's like, where did they get that from? It's like, well, they've been driving with you since they were, you know, for the last 16 years, and they've probably seen you do it a number of times. And they're like, oh, that's what happens on the road. Driving's a big one that I think most, you know, half the time when you're driving, you kind of like almost forget your kids are back there because you're focused on the road. So whatever happens, you know, sometimes it happens.
I like this. I know at the top of the hour here, I was trying to look up something. I always like to bucket things, and practical takeaways always help me, these kind of things here. But 4 things I thought were really good with this here. But practical takeaways for you, and I think with the family, with your kids as well. But you know, this is talking about actionable advice for modeling kindness and reducing judgment. Some things seem obvious, but I like one here in particular. One says, catch yourself in the moment, pause before making offhand remarks. I'm going to now try and channel Dom in those moments. Number 2 says, teach active kindness. I like this. Make a point to compliment someone in front of your kids. Today it says, but I think any day I think would definitely be good. Or thinking about like I'm always big on the resolution. I think that whether you aren't kind or you're mean to someone, I think it's always great to kind of make it the other way. Number 2 is create a family rule. This is one I just like the most. Create the family rule. Commit to speaking kindly about others, even in private, which I thought was a good rule to kind of like check yourself if you tell your kids that. What's up, Junie?
Junie, bring your face over here. Give her your face over. She has a loose tooth and it's about to pop out here. So,
oh, nice.
That's our issue.
Awesome.
Right, pull it out. Pull it out on camera.
Should we pull it out right now, in front of the world?
I hear that when you do it on camera, Junie, it's worth an extra $20. You should do it.
Meaning Uncle Ryan's going to send you $20.
It's not how that works. That's not how that works. Anyway, the other one here was just the critical thinking, right? So like talking with your kids about why judging others, which I think is the resolution. So even if it happens and you're driving, hey, Junie, is dad a nice driver? Is dad nice to other drivers on the road?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear it. All right, guys. Well, I have to jump, and doesn't have to. You don't have to. You can definitely stay here, but I just want to make sure I'm gonna head out. Do you guys have anything else you want to bring up?
I would like. I would like to focus in the mornings a bit more on gratitudes again. I think I'm forgetting it, and I think I'm feeling it.
Got it. May have been my fault. Always trying to connect the gratitude to the reading, but then I think that we just got away from sharing it. So yeah, let's bring it back.
Nope, not your fault. No blame.
Stop judging me. But we get to go. No, John, I liked I want to reestablish my pause button, and I think the reminder of you just in my life, but I think also, focusing back on, I think the framework of Stoicism altogether. Stoicism gets a bad rap sometimes, though. Have you guys heard about people recently talking bad about Stoicism? Because they're like, do you know where Stoicism comes from? And then I'm like, I don't know. Are you going to say something mean right now? They usually do. So,
yeah. I was going to say it's pretty hard to establish a pause button when you're also establishing yourself as a reply guy on Twitter. So you just have to keep yourself separate a little bit,
I got it. But at the same time, I'm now monetized. I did my posting.
Got it.
I gotta do it at some point, but it's less of it now.
Well done.
I mean, come on. If anyone's been watching my feed, it's been a lot less. I've just also been busy, so it also works.
I agree.
All right. Anyway, I gotta go. I love you guys. Junie, take your tooth out. Dad said an extra 30 if you do it in the next 10 minutes. Okay.
Uncle Ryan will send you another 30. Uncle Ryan will match that.
This is the most expensive tooth in history. All right.